Hey there, future celeb, and welcome to How to Be Famous with Whitney Uland. I'm your host, Whitney Uland. Now, I'm a big believer that the world would be a better place if more good-hearted people were able to make a massive impact. And if fame is calling to you, then there is an audience for you, and I'm here to show you how to find it. In this show, we are diving into the art of becoming a self-made celebrity. And no, you do not need $1 million ad budget or a team of talented agents. You already have the power inside of you, and I'm here to show you how to unlock it. I'm here to help the talented artists, creatives, and influencers tap into what I call celebrity energy so that you can become the magnet for the opportunities, fame, and success that you know that you were born for. But we're not here just for fame's sake. We're about making a positive impact, sharing your unique voice, and ultimately connecting to like-minded souls who also want to make a massive impact. So join me as we explore the stories, secrets, and strategies to help you shine brighter and leave your mark on this world. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and entertained, because this process is really about turning your dreams into a reality and finding the audience that is obsessed with you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and together we will embark on the journey where I show you how to be famous.
Hello, future celeb, and welcome to another episode of How to Be Famous with Whitney Uland. I'm your host, Whitney Uland, and I am so excited to share this episode. This is another episode where you are going to hear me coaching a client. This is Brendon Lemon, and it's so funny the way that this all turned out, the way that this happened. So he is a comedian and he has a large social media presence, but he has not learned how to convert that into actually paying his bills. And the way that we connected is that he made a TikTok about that exact fact and about how he was like, I have this huge following, and in any other time of the world, then that would change my entire life, and yet it hasn't. And so then it turns out he had purchased one of my courses. And so when we made that connection via email, then I was like, oh my God, I have to coach you. Let's talk about it. So you're going to hear that. And we're also going to share the clip that sparked this whole thing, the TikTok heard around the world that has several million views, I believe. So enjoy this episode. And again, if you're listening to this in real time, you are invited to the Rich and Famous month in my VIP mentorship, The Self-Made Celebrity. If you head to the link in my show notes, you are going to get immediate access to coaching with me for 6 months, where you are going to have community access, community support, all questions answered, get all of the support that you need to create the resource of fame. And we also have a goal hitting guarantee that you can read about on that website. So without any further ado, enjoy this episode.
How are you, Brendon?
I'm doing good. I'm having a good week, good day. Everything's pretty great.
How'd the shows go? Was it a tour? Was it shows?
I did the Traverse City Comedy Festival in Michigan, and that went great. But
Good.
I did the Independent Comedy Club in Hamtramck, which is just outside of Detroit, and I bombed my dick off. Holy shit. I have not done that poorly on stage in a long time.
Dang
that crowd hated me from beginning to end. Like they did not. I was not set up for success, but it was it's part of the process of doing comedy. Sometimes you gotta it's like boxing. You're gonna get punched in the face every once in a while.
Do you feel like it's totally on the room, or did you change material? Like, is it all?
It's like surfing, right? Sometimes it's the ocean and sometimes it's you. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I've been doing comedy a long time, and I feel like I was not set up for success. And I think the crowd decided early they did not like me, but
Got it.
I didn't do myself any favors. I leaned right into like, oh, you don't like me? Let's show you how much you don't like me.
Got it.
Yeah,
And
that
didn't work?
No.
That sounds
No.
weird.
Sometimes it does, strangely, but it did not
Does it?
did not that night. Did not that night at all.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I mean, it is what it is. It's probably worse I bombed in like 2 years, but anyway, all the other shows I did were great, but that one was painful.
I have so much, truly respect for comedians. I think I tried doing stand-up for like a hot second. My agent at one point was like, hey, do you do stand-up? And I was like, I could. And he's like, okay. He's like, yeah. He was like, well, I was going to see if I had just signed with A3, which RIP, they just went under. But
yeah.
they were like, yeah, we were looking for new creators to send to JFL. And I was like, oh yeah, I can figure that out. And now I'm like, Whitney, why did you think you could pull something out of your ass?
I love that.
and be good enough for
But you did
JFL.
it. But you did it. But you did it. Like you went and did comedy.
I went and did comedy. I went like, and I like, it was bad though. It was really bad. So
I mean, but you know, it doesn't matter. Like the fact that you even went and did it is like everybody, I think everybody should do it at least
I
one
think so
time.
too. I think so
The
too.
amount that you learn about yourself in a bomb is incredible. Like you learn how you react under pressure, you learn that you survive it, you learn that like, oh yeah, maybe this isn't like it isn't
For me.
spontaneous. Like this isn't, yeah, maybe it isn't for me. Or maybe there are parts of it that are, but like the whole process of writing material and trying to get up in front of people and telling jokes is like is a to contort yourself into those shapes. I think teaches
Mm-hmm.
you a lot about yourself, which I really like. It's part of the reason I like doing comedy so much.
That makes sense. Well, and it's also, I mean, I feel like it has to be, there's some case study in there that I need to make at some point about just like it being the epitome of celebrity energy, because it's like it has to be a feedback loop. Like I feel like you have to be present in order for it to be good, right?
Oh, completely. And it's interesting. You probably should, there probably is something for you to do there because you can see when it's not going well. Like Johnny Carson used to say that you can judge the quality of a comedian by how well he bombs. And like
Oh,
you can,
interesting.
because there's like a weird collapse where the audience doesn't like so I got off stage in Detroit. Actually, this is interesting because this was the one kernel of gold that I took away from that bomb, which was a bunch of people came up to me and they were like, "Oh, we could tell you were a good comedian. They just nobody wanted to laugh at you."
Yeah.
Like that, like you didn't, and at no point did you surrender to like the audience's judgments about you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really weird because we used to talk about in the Chicago scene years ago, we used to talk about that you're on stage, you are correct. Nothing, everyone is wrong but you. But off stage, everyone is right but you. That is like you have to figure out what you did wrong to try to get them. But when you're on stage is not the time to do it. Because if you begin to collapse under that energy, they'll never trust you. The audience will never trust you again to take them anywhere
Right.
because it's like, and I think, and I don't know if I had a chip on my shoulder or what when I was in Detroit, but part of me was just like, nah, fuck you guys. And like, it wasn't a good, in retrospect, if I had just been like, I can tell you don't like me, they probably would have opened up, but I just was like, nah, dude, I don't know what it was that night, but I just
Yeah.
decided to just spite their energy, I suppose.
That's so interesting. Well, and also, okay, also, do you mind if I just leave all of this in? Because
Yeah, go ahead.
this is
This is
cool.
great.
I'm like, but because like I've coached so many clients on getting canceled, and when they have gotten canceled, and the what ends up happening is it's probably kind of just like a macro version of bombing on stage, right? Where it's like something doesn't land, but then what happens is then they go into fight or flight, and then
Hmm.
it's like the response that actually triggers people that leads to people getting canceled,
Yep.
right? And so like, but on as a comedian you have to be able to like do that in real time.
No, that's exactly right. You're doing it live in front of the audience. The feedback is coming right then. It's strange. It is weird too because depending on the room dynamics, like in stand up, the audience can like you and they can think you're funny and they just won't feel comfortable laughing for some reason. And it's like your job as the
Interesting.
comic to set the tone that puts the environment together. The way that I describe it is it's like you're creating a tribe and then you're leading the tribe,
Yeah.
and that's what you have to do, and you have to acknowledge everything in the room. You have to be responsible for everything that happens in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see how canceling could be part of that.
So like with celebrity energy, it's really like you have to energetically hold space for other people. Like it's the same thing, right? It's when your energy, it's like becomes so like powerful that it kind of usurps other people's energy. So kind of this idea of like you have to, not like you believe that you're better than other people, like it's not about being above them in that way, but it is like a power dynamic of like I control the space and the energy here.
Yes.
Does that make
I see.
sense?
Yeah, there's a kind of grounding. You're holding space and you're creating. I understand what you're talking about because I mean, it's like I met a number of politicians and
Mm-hmm.
including George W. Bush, and it was weird because at the time I hated that guy. Like I could not have been more like against George W.
Yeah.
Bush. And the moment I met him, I was like, I fucking love you, bro. Like this, there's something about
Mm,
it. because it like he's magnanimous in a way that like is in person that is like kind of indescribable, and it feels like that holding space was a part of it, where it's like, how did I feel more seen by George W. Bush in the moments in which I shook his hand and he asked me how my day was going than I have like by my whole family in the last year? Like that's so weird.
Yes. Okay. And that's also like, I've been like kind of joking that like right now I'm back in the dating game and it's like they keep thinking that they're falling in love with me, but it's really that they're just like feeling so seen by my presence because
Yeah.
like I know how to hold space. And so they're like, I'm like every single person that I go on a date with leaves and is like, I can fulfill all of my life dreams. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Whitney's
like,
just the answer to all of my problems.
right. And like I keep having to be like, yeah, thank you, but no thank you. And they're like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. We had such good chemistry. And I'm like, yeah, that's like my thing.
Yeah, that's
like I have
because
that with
I'm
everyone.
a great time. Yeah.
Right.
There's a great, it must be difficult, Whitney. There's a great joke by Drew Michael, the comedian. And
Okay.
he's talking about being single, and he's like, he goes, you know, I go out on all these dates lately, and it's so bad because he's like, I'm a comic, like I'm professionally interesting for a living, so I go
Yeah.
out with people, and they're like, but we had a good time, and he's like, yeah, because I'm a good
I'm the
time.
good time.
Yeah,
Yes, 100%. It's just like, yeah, I get it, babe. And like it's always like these and people like they really open up to me and like tell me things like immediately and so they're like, "No, I think like this is a real." And I'm like, "Yeah, no." And so like they feel like they like we have to have this long like breakup and I'm like, "Bro, we went on 2 dates." Like it's
yeah,
not
but you were the only woman I've connected with in LA.
Yeah, yeah, of course, because it's
I could
always like
come.
LA,
Yeah,
so
well, I could see it too because you know I have friends. You know, I have a very close friend of mine who's an actress and a comedian, Nasia Marrero, who's out in LA. She's amazing. She's fantastic. She's her star is really on the rise. But she goes out on these dates with guys, and I think it's very similar. Where like there, it seems like LA, and I've been out there a number of times, obviously for comedy and entertainment. But it's like there's such a culture, I think, of people being sort of checked out like most
Mhm.
of the time or self-involved, whichever way you want to
Yes.
put it. They're just not present. That I think when they meet somebody like Nasia's from Portugal and the culture of connecting with people is just very different. And so
Yeah.
she goes out with these guys and they like lose their minds thinking
Yeah.
like, oh, she's the answer to
She's
all
the
of my
one.
problems. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no, she actually just knocked you into being present for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, bro. It's just been your mother and her who have actually listened to you in the last 20 years. And like,
Yes.
dude,
100%. This is so good. Okay. So I love where this is already going. But I did want to talk to you about, for anyone listening, and I'll probably do a little intro, but you and I connected tale as old as time on the TikTok.
on the tiki-takis.
On the Tiki Talkies. And I love your we'll call it a piece, if you will, about
Little think piece.
a little think piece, yeah, and about, this idea. Well, I mean, I'll play
Sure.
the audio here, I guess.
And here's what I mean. We live in a time in which things online are somehow more important and strangely more real than things that happen in real life. But because we still exist in meat space, when it comes time to try to translate value you've created online into value in real life, that check sometimes just won't cash. On this account, I've got almost 100,000 followers. I think I'm almost at 75K. And that's really cool. That's a lot of people. I sometimes get recognized in real life. That's an opportunity in which the simulation of fame that comes from this app translates into real life. But the thing that's bizarre about it is we all know that 71 to 75,000 followers is like not shit when it comes to real life. Like that's actually not that many people. That doesn't change my material life at all. I would need 10 times that amount in order to have my real life be affected at all. And actually, sometimes, even if you had 10 times that amount, it might not matter. There is a gap between virtual reality and reality. You're not actually famous, you just have the simulation of fame. I have friends who have over a million followers and they're living paycheck to paycheck. Like they can't barely afford their bills. They're not millionaires. At no other time in history, in world history, could you have 1 million people who have decided to follow you. Hundreds of thousands of people watch things that you say and do on almost a daily basis and be completely materially broke.
But just kind of this idea of like having access to being able to like get your ideas in front of 1 million people and that not translating into, I think you said anything, but is it money specifically? Like, tell me more.
Material outcomes. Yeah, I said material outcomes. Money, I guess, is part of it, but just it's very weird to me. First of all, before we even get into this, let me tell you
Yeah.
this. I am so excited. I have been so excited for this conversation. Like I've been really looking forward to it. And I'm so excited to figure out like where we're going to go in this talk, because this is just the best. I'm such a fan of what you do and of what you, and so when I bought the way, I forget exactly how we got together, but I ended up buying your course independent of like, I still haven't taken it, but I bought it, and independent
Thank you.
yeah, well, because I was like, I want to have this conversation first, and I want to reach this sort of unmolested from like any other, only what I've seen from you on TikTok. And I'm very interested to see where this goes, because it's kind of ironic to me that that video about me effectively complaining that I'm like not getting, I'm like, dude, I'm making videos that are getting 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, a million, 2 million like views, and there's zero change like in my life. Like I haven't, I get up, I do the same things. I've had like almost zero change in my waking life. And what I said in the TikTok was my material outcomes. Like my
Okay.
apartment hasn't changed, my wardrobe hasn't changed, my like none of these things have like changed really. And it's weird because it feels like at any other time in history, if you had any thought that you shared, or performance, whatever, that got in front of a million people, like your life would be radically different. And it's just so weird that we live in an era now where like that's casual, that's common, that's pedestrian, that's not even, it's kind of unremarkable in like in many ways. And
Yeah.
so it's just ironic to me that that TikTok is now at like almost 4 million views and like just blew up. And I was like, oh, wow, it's the time that I complain about not getting famous that like suddenly I get all this like attention.
Well, yeah. And so for anyone, and like this is also though what I would say is different. And so, and interesting, the way that I would look at it is that, so like I always say fame is a resource. It's the resource of having people's attention. And the skill is then how can I leverage that to get the things that I want. Right.
Mm.
So even like with this, like the most, like, I got to be honest with you, Brendon, like how many people slide into my DMs every fucking day asking for free coaching? 20 at least,
Mm.
like minimum, right? And
Yeah.
yet, because you had this resource of fame, and also I just have to tell you, this kind of secret, I don't actually check my inbox. Like I never do. It's always
Yeah.
my business manager that does. And for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I saw yours and I happened to respond to it. And that's how we made the connection of like, oh, I saw this post or whatever. And I was like, I wanted to stitch that, like I want to digest that and think about it and all of that. And so even that, it's like you did create results, you leveraging the resource. And so what I would argue is that you just haven't learned how to leverage it yet.
Yeah. I think,
And
well,
that's
I think,
why.
yeah. And that's why you said that. So we had in the exchange before this, you were like, I think that's what's going on. And I was like, teach me, Whitney. Like I was very much like, I'm here for this. This is fantastic. And it's funny because just to kind of steelman your point a little bit, in the ensuing few TikToks I've made since that one, influenced by the way, by a number of your pieces that you've made, I feel like I've had a number of outcomes. Like I was on Douglas Rushkoff's podcast like recently, who's the creator that I made the next TikTok about. He's like a famous author, and he messaged me out of nowhere and was like, yo, I saw your TikTok. Do you want to be on my podcast? And I was like, what is happening? Like,
Okay,
and
so it is happening. And I think that's kind of the first thing that like I want to like just offer. So basically what I'm going to do is just kind of coach you on like
let's
how
go.
to then continue leveraging this more. So, and I think with part of this, what we want to do is I like to think about like, creating new thoughts is kind of like driving a car and creating a new identity. Because ultimately what this is going to be is you stepping into a new identity and stepping into that next level identity where like being the person who is monetizing, because it sounds like, I mean, you can tell me, but is money kind of the main thing that you would like the first thing to change, or is there something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think yeah, paying bills, getting my expenses covered with while creating content, leveraging fame, any of this, yeah, that would be probably the basic.
The basic one.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's the thing is like everyone kind of has different goals. There are some people that are like, oh, well, I'm actually supported by X, Y, and Z. Money doesn't matter or, whatever. But for me, like that's my story is not having that. And so
Yeah.
I have seen, that money then it's a way that you can exchange for other things and get those survival needs met
Totally.
and then blow it up from there. So
yes, that's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I'd
Okay,
like to
amazing.
create a platform from which I have a lot of shit that I want to work on, and solving a day-to-day level of I just need to afford my life is draining time and energy away from those goals.
Yes. Okay. So then let me ask you this. And here's the thing also about money is money is also a resource. Fame is a resource too, but money is something that is arguably more important to survival. Like I've definitely gotten things for free, having the resource of fame, a free membership to a social club, a free, whatever, but it's not actual. I do get free meals, but it's not my day-to-day thing, right? So it's
Yep.
and also what I want to offer is that fame has to be the exchange is typically commerce, meaning
Yep.
there's some middleman in between that like because people like money is usually exchanged for a product or service and money
Yep.
also, right? So it's about finding what that is. So going back to this metaphor of creating fame is going to be like driving a car. So on the one hand, we got to take your foot off of the brake, which is figure out what these thoughts are that are leading you to playing smaller than you are capable of. The reason for this is okay. So if we think about money is a resource that's going to pay for your survival, water is a resource that's going to keep you alive. If you feel like any of your survival resources are being threatened,
Mm-hmm.
then of course your body is going to then go into a fight or flight state, right? Like if I was to say like, hey, by the end of the month you're going to be out of water, then all of your attention is going to go to like, how do I make sure I have enough water? Right.
Mm.
And it's like going to create like a primal fight or flight response to do that, which is an adaptive response that would work if you were in the wild and needed to like run somewhere to get water, whatever it is. But with money, the way that you create money is through an exchange of value,
Mm.
which happens when you are tapped into your highest level of creativity. Now, the two things that can't exist at the same time are fear and creativity,
Mm. Mm.
right? Like if you were in the wild and you were all of a sudden under attack of a bear, you're not going to then also be able to like write a sonata or like or come up with a bunch of jokes. Well, you might because that's now just like in your psyche. What are your thoughts with all of this?
Oh, this is what happened when the bear came to dinner.
Right.
I was on the menu. That makes sense to me. I feel like you can't. I mean, I think creativity can work with adversity, but it doesn't. But I
Mm-hmm.
think you're correct. I don't think that creativity can exist with real fear that
Yes.
something very bad is going to happen.
Well, and I would also argue, you tell me this because you have a better insight into the comedy world. Creativity coming from adversity is like I am not gonna lie, like I am afraid of most comedians. Like I'm just like y'all are scary, but I think a big part of it is that so many comedians, it's like humor is their coping mechanism and they
Oh
have
yeah.
come from a significant amount of adversity.
Yeah. Well, however afraid you are of being around us, we are that afraid of being us. So it's definitely like a yeah. I think that it's funny because I think this is also just particularly true of the Los Angeles comedy scene and people who come from it, is that there is a certain amount of negative energy that I feel
Hmm.
like moves around. Where a good example is when a lot of LA comics were moving out to Austin during the pandemic. I was out in Austin. It felt like the energy they carry with them was almost like, oh, somebody's going to get hurt is how it like would feel. I don't think that was entirely very conducive to like creating a best creative experience for
Right.
like a lot of people in that scene.
So where do you feel in terms of so one of our like main primal instincts is going to be don't upset the quote unquote tribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that I have seen in working with comedians is that it's hard to then be someone who's like it is actually going to go against your primal instincts to become like a rich comedian
Mm,
because and to be like a happy and positive comedian because you would be like disconnected from the tribe in that way.
mm, mm.
Does that
Y- Yeah,
is
I
that
think
something you interact that
yeah,
comes
I
up for
think
you or
there's
no?
yeah, it's funny. I think there's something there because there's definitely a yeah, there's like a tribal like group mind that almost forms around like things are just kind of shitty, right? Or like there is definitely a I think that I had trouble this I mean to get into this like personally. This almost feels like therapy at some
Hmm.
level, by the way.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely some contingent of like the Chicago comedy scene that I came up in that did not fuck with me because I had a day job and I had a girlfriend and I was positive about like I want to make this succeed and I have projects I want to work on and there was something about like, yeah, I just don't want to hang out in fucking dingy bars all the time, you know, talking about how shitty everything is, because it's not. I want to make it really good and I'm going to have a lot of fun. And like, there was a kind of almost, not to put myself on a different level, I guess, but there was like a energetic difference
Yes.
between me and that group of people who didn't fuck with me.
Yep. So, and that's what I want to offer is like, so there's always going to be, and I talk about this all the time, but there's three things that get in the way of us creating like the fame. The third one is always going, or I'm sorry, the second one is going to be our community. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like moving away from community. So whether it's your family, whether it's just like the scene of, you know, your colleagues, whether it's your friend group, whether it's your girlfriend, you know, whoever it is, if there is that energetic difference, then your brain is going to like find these sneaky ways of self-sabotaging to move beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, and I can tell because how many comedians are there that are willing to put themselves online? Like
Mm-hmm.
not that many.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it feels like it to you, but like they're like,
Well, it's weird. There are established comedians who won't put themselves online, which I
right,
think is rather interesting. Like
right.
comedians who have an established presence in the comedy scene who don't post any of their clips, don't have a lot of followers, like any of this stuff.
Yeah. And so, and I think, you know, going back to like how you've established like with that, like the meat space, right? It's like the landscape is changing. And I would argue that not doing that is kind of like those people that wouldn't adapt to like television.
Mm.
Right, where it's like in the past they were like no, we're not, whatever it is of like I would say that's kind of a relic of just being like, oh, I don't need to do that. And it's like maybe for them they didn't, they're already established. But if you're creating and you are establishing yourself, then not adapting to the internet is like saying, oh, like I don't think television is going to go anywhere.
There's something about not wanting to connect with it that they're leaving themselves out of.
Mm-hmm.
And self-sabotage feels like maybe a way to think about that. Yeah. Especially when it's
Exactly.
so established that like that is exactly, this is the way everything is moving now.
Exactly, 100%. So then let me ask you this. So going back to this, so there is this kind of like societal maybe block or whatever. But then what do you feel like if I were to say like, I don't know if you want to throw out a number, if I can throw one out, but like making, let's just say like $10,000 a month, like doing what you love.
Sure.
What I was to like put that on as a goal. Why, what are all the reasons your brain tells you that that can't happen?
First one is I don't have a good idea that people would like to exchange money for. Yeah, I don't have anything valuable that someone would want to exchange money for is probably the first one that comes up.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think, like, tell me more about, and it's so funny because like as a coach, I'm like, I've literally like it's so clear to me, but this is always what it comes down to is this thought of like, I don't have anything valuable.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you think that thought, I don't have anything valuable, what's the emotion, like one word feeling that comes up in your body?
Flat. I don't know
Mhm.
how to decompress. I'm not sure. Just a
Yeah. Yeah. Like collapsed almost is kind of that
collapsed.
like
Collapse.
hand.
There you go. Collapsed.
Yeah.
Yeah, collapse is a good one.
Okay. So, and then what actions do you take when you're feeling that like collapsed?
I mean, none. I don't,
Okay.
what do? I go walk around like Charlie Brown, who's like depressed. Like I don't really do anything when I'm feeling
Yeah.
that way.
Okay. And what do you do instead of doing something? Like,
Uh
because this is where we always turn to overconsumption. So this is overeating, overspending, over sex, over video games, over consuming
yeah.
content. Like,
I would say, you know what? It probably is a toss up between going and doing exercise because I'm like, I need to get out of this fucking headspace, and I would go for a run, or I do a lot of martial arts, or I would go do calisthenics or something. Or I would try to go find some chick to hook up with. That would probably
yep.
be one of the two things that depending on the time of day in which that thought occurred, there could be two wildly different outcomes.
Incredible, incredible. And so then let me ask you this, like when you are you're feeling collapse, then there's the inaction. It's kind of this like almost like kind of whiny energy maybe of like I don't have anything valuable, like ho hum. And then but then that thought feels like shit, right? That
Yeah.
collapse energy feels
Yeah.
bad. And so then what we try and do is then we start taking actions to react to that negative feeling. Right. And that's where it's like, let me distract myself or let me just change my energetic state by going for
Distraction.
a run,
Yeah.
distract myself. Right.
Yeah. Let me
Now,
go play a video game. Let me go fucking, yeah, whatever. Any
yeah.
of those things. Totally
r-
agreed.
Yeah. And so then all of those actions even though like even like let's say exercise total like net positive, and yet it gives you evidence that you don't have anything valuable. Right? And so like we think that it's just a truth that there's nothing valuable, when in reality it's this thought of like I don't have anything valuable that then makes you feel collapse, which then leads to all these actions that like maybe feel bad about yourself, maybe you're just a distraction, but like walking like inaction, video games, like overconsumption, that then
Mm-hmm.
proves this thought true.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, like there's no working through that feeling.
Yeah.
It's like an escape.
Yep.
I'd agree. There's like a what's the word, abdicating
Yeah.
presence in that moment.
Yes, exactly. So let me ask you this. What does believing that thought, like I don't have anything valuable, what does that protect you from?
Having to do the work, having to work and fail. I think there's something there's something about it. It protects. I mean, it lets me stay where I am. Like I don't have to change anything. Nothing has to change, even for the better. I mean, there's no new different things happening, no scary things. No, I feel safe. Safety, I think maybe is the answer to that question.
100%. Well, and to your point, it's like even if like our souls are excited about like, oh yeah, it would be amazing to make $10,000 a month doing what I love. If it's different, your brain's going to avoid it. If it's confusing, your brain's going to avoid it. If it requires effort, your brain's going to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so like I think and like it's interesting, like even though like our brains, yes, of course, would rather just like lay on the couch all day, but also you're clear, like you're creating content, you're going out, you're doing shows, you're not really afraid of work. It's
No, it's
probably the negative emotion
yeah,
attached
it's
to
so
whatever it is
weird.
like.
Okay, so so I'm glad that you brought this up because here's what's confusing for me as the person who experiences what you're describing. I've talked to a lot of therapists about this because I've been like, I'm clearly not afraid of work, and I'm
Right.
not afraid of doing dangerous or uncomfortable things. I do crazy shit. I've get in the cage and fight mixed martial arts.
Right. You get
I
on the stage and do stand up.
Yeah, I got on stage and do stand up. I ran a marathon last year. Like
Mm.
I'm not afraid to go do a lot of things that are very scary and frightening to other people. And I'm not afraid of hard work because I work really freaking hard a lot on a lot of different things. I wrote a short film that is winning awards that like was a major risk for me to put out. I put money into it. I put
Yep.
money into all these projects. But for some reason, there's like a disconnect between doing that and feeling like either confident in it or feeling like there's like a piece of fear that is that I feel like I can't think or move beyond that I don't understand. And it is just difficult to be in that position because I feel like if I knew what it was, I would want to go straight after it and attack it. But it feels like the fear is like there's something there that's preventing me from. It's almost like I don't believe in myself, except I so obviously do because I've completely done all this other stuff. So it's very confusing to
Yeah.
like a therapist if they talk to them about it.
Right. I know. No, I totally understand. And that's where it comes down to though, this fear of being like this fear of being seen. So for you, you're like most like you do believe in yourself. And this is where like the way that this translates for other like verticals would be like someone who's like, I really believe in my work, what I do. Like this could be coaches, right? A life coach. I know what I do is good, but then it's that fear of like putting that out there because that's so vulnerable of
Mm,
like being like you would probably rather fail at a marathon than like publicly fail as a comedian.
yeah.
And there's just going to be this primal instinct to not like there's risk involved with like making like if you were I don't know if you're a gig worker right now, but like moving into or if you're on salary, but like moving into a place where your income solely is dependent on what the way that people perceive you,
Yes.
that is threatening.
Well, and it's scary, dude, because so you've hit the nail on the head because it this is I almost feel like I need to give like a disclaimer to your audience to be like, we didn't talk about any of this beforehand. Like it's really weird how accurate this is like landing.
I
Um
know. I've done this
because
a lot.
yeah. Yeah, because it feels like I just can't depend on anybody to actually like me. Like that's
Yeah.
what it feels like. It feels like there's nothing like it's a football that I'll be lobbed into the air and will never be caught by the audience. Like I can't depend on anybody else for anything. And I really can't. There's something and here's the thing that's fucked up, I think. This is vulnerable for me to admit in like a public forum. I genuinely feel like I do not understand why almost anybody likes me. Like, I think that I like me. I enjoy my own company. I spend a lot of time with myself, and mostly it's a good time.
Yeah.
But like, I don't, thinking back to even childhood, I feel like it's an arbitrary whether or not somebody fucks with you. And I'm not a dude who gets invited to parties, not a dude who gets picked for shit, not a guy who gets like added to, hey, we're going to choose these people to be on the team and we want Brendon to be on it. It feels like everything I've had to do, I've had to create my own club in order for me to be a member of something. That's kind of what it feels like it's had to be. And I mean, and literally that's the truth, because I've created a comedy club here in New York because I have not gotten past at any other fucking comedy club in this city. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to make my own, because this is how much I love doing comedy in front of audiences, that I'm not going to try to wait to be picked by anybody else. But it's like, but that's the problem, because it's like you have to have, if you're in the business of entertainment, people have to like you. And it feels like, I just can't depend on any of them doing that. And maybe it's true. Sorry, I feel like I'm ranting, but like, maybe it's true that there's a part of me that is not showing up because I don't want the feeling of rejection.
Yeah.
Or like the feeling of, and it's weird because I don't even know what that part is. I can feel like it's there, but maybe I'm even numb to it because I've been doing this for so long.
Well, you have the awareness of it. I mean, here's the thing, like what I see with my clients is like, to get to a certain level of success, it actually is advantageous to like kind of have a chip on your shoulder and be like, I'm going to just do it myself.
Yes.
And then that taps
Okay,
out.
Check box. Yeah.
Right. And then the next level is like, if you actually want to take that to the next level, you have to embody the kind of person where you do believe that people do want to be around you. They do want to be a part of you, and leverage their networks and their audiences. Right. So what's happening right now is you have a podcast, you have a TikTok, you have a following. Those are 100% of like monetizable platforms for you. But your brain is not going to see that or even look for evidence of that when you have this story. I can't rely on other people.
How do I get a new brain, Whitney?
That's exactly what we're doing here. So this is perfect.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
And I
find myself in the right place.
You found yourself in the right place, right? But the first thing is going to be, and like, this is something I see so often, is looking at when clients, it's confusion. It's, I don't even know where to start, but really that's usually a mask for what's underneath, which is, I don't have anything valuable. I can't depend on people to actually like me.
It's very weird because just to talk to this for a second, I feel like I've had a lot of people, even especially lately, will toss ideas at me. And a lot of them will be like, well, you could do this. And I'm like, and that's a decent idea. It just doesn't feel, it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like somebody said, you should do a book club on TikTok, which so easily, if you've seen any of my TikToks, line up with, I could so easily do that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm always reading books. I'm a, knowledge junkie. And, but it's funny because ideas like this, just there's something about them that it feels like it's either like, this doesn't feel authentic to me, I'm not excited about it, or I don't know. Like that's the same, the emotion is like,
Right. Well, but I think sounds like it's a little bit of a pivot from what you actually want to do, but you're not seeing the opportunities for monetization because you're not thinking that what you have already and inherently do is valuable and worth a money exchange and worth people depending on giving you money for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I'm just letting that land.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do I got to do?
So the first thing that with this is like, I mean, yes, there are like things you can do. And I can't remember, which of my courses did you buy? Do you remember?
I don't. It was a while ago.
Okay. Do you remember if it was like about a TikTok following or if it was like the 6 steps to celebrity energy?
I think that was it. I think it was the 6 steps to celebrity energy.
Okay. So then that's the one, like truly go into this course using specifically this thought of like, I'm not valuable. What I have is not valuable or worthy of money. And like, I can't depend on people to actually like me. Tackle that in the course. So the course it's a 6-step process. You can rinse and repeat it, and it will show you how to identify these blocks so that you can continue growing and continue stepping out of this yourself. But it's going to walk you through this. The first thing though is with this, yes, of course, like the therapy is helpful. Looking for like, where did you learn this story? Like, where did this come from? Usually it's some sort of like either being neglected or abandoned by your parents, or seeing them have a chip on their shoulder, or like it's something that happened at a young age that we learned this. but you don't actually have to do all of this digging to stop it from impacting your future. So the
Mm.
first thing that we want to do is just get really aware of where all this thought is showing up in your life. So if it's this, like, I don't have anything valuable, I can't depend on people to actually like me. If this, like, the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. And you mentioned, I'm making an assumption here, so you can tell me if this is not true, but you mentioned that, like, finding a girl to hook up with is like, so that this thought could be leading to that, where it's like, well, I don't have anything valuable, so it's not going to be a relationship that's like
Ooh.
really
Ugh.
serving. Am I
God.
right? Am I wrong?
Ugh. God, that feels so gross. Yeah, you're right. That sucks. Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah. No, you're right. It's true.
Right. And
God, that
so
feels disgusting.
I say a lot of this from my own experience, just to be clear. Like, I'm not not trying to call
No,
you
but
out,
I mean,
right?
but it makes sense. I mean, like, and that's why it's so funny because that you just that connects to a really powerful. Sorry, I'm having a lot of thoughts that are coming up.
Good.
That connects to a really powerful series about. I've done so much work about relationships previously in
Mm-hmm.
therapy, and I think that really connected a lot of dots actually right now. That
Cool.
was because it lands. It's like, yeah, I'm just no wonder you're not going to create really fulfilling relationships with other people when the desired outcome you're trying to get is something that proves you have any value to begin with in the first place. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Ew.
Yeah, but this is also really good news because now that you have that awareness, like your thoughts are, so we have, it's like a neural pathway, which is essentially like it's like a super highway of your brain. So think of it like a path in the snow that's gone down a lot, right? It's just the easiest path. So your brain has this thought of like, I don't have anything valuable. And like, yes, that sounds heavy and like sad and depressing. And it's just as much of a thought as you probably also believe like New York winters are cold, right? Where it's like let's not put any like weight on it. Let's just say like that's just a thought that comes
Sure.
up,
Yep.
right? And the more that you get aware of it, like, so now we're going to ask your brain, your reticular activating system, which is the part of your brain that looks for patterns. Ask your brain to look for all of the ways that this thought shows up.
Mm-hmm.
How is this showing up in your dating life? How is this showing up in your family life? How is this showing up in your friends? How is this showing up in your career? How is this showing up in relation to money?
Yep.
And just see. And the more that you identify it, it's kind of like this idea of like if someone it was trying to lose weight and you were like, okay, just write a log of what all you eat, you would immediately start eating better just because you have that awareness and you know that it's
Yep.
being watched.
Yes. Building some consciousness around it.
Yeah.
I have never thought to do this before. This is so interesting.
It's
Okay.
fun, right?
Well, it's it's fun. It's kind of it feels a little bit like you discovered a room in your home and you've been like, "Oh, that's where the smell's been coming from."
Yeah, but
So
then you
it's
get to clean out the dead body
yeah.
and then it's
Yeah.
not going to smell anymore.
I mean,
It's
exactly. So
amazing.
if it's fun as long as you enjoy the concept of cleaning out the dead body. So now I got to go do that.
Exactly, but then it's not gonna stink. It's so fun.
Fair.
That's why, like,
Yes, fair.
I
Good
honestly
point.
feel like all of my friends and like it's like I'm always a person who's creating like 10 results at the same time because I'm addicted to this process where it's like a
Mm,
metal detector of being like, where's the dead body? Right. And then as soon as you find it, it's like, and now then use that course to go through the like, so that's gonna be the first step. So that's what I'm gonna leave you with today is
yeah.
that awareness piece. And I'm going to challenge you to really find awareness without judging it,
Yeah.
right? Of just like, let's just see how often this thought comes here and don't beat yourself up for it because there's probably a very valid reason that it's there, right? You probably
Yeah.
learned it. You probably were patterned. It was probably patterned to you. It probably protects you from something in some way, shape, or form, right? So just not judging it is going to be the fastest way to clean it out.
I like this. Yeah, no, I appreciate this. Yeah, and it's interesting. I've done so much. I've done a lot of work. I mean, it's fascinating because I feel like this is kind of almost a capstone on like a whole bunch of other stuff that's like foundationally been done. So,
Yeah.
especially patience, meditation, awareness, non-judgment, just being like, "Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
It's doing its thing again."
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's where I'm
Exactly.
gonna have to go carry a notebook around with me so I can keep track of every time this emotion shows up and try not to shame it because I almost just said this stupid emotion shows up. it's
Okay.
it's hard because I talk with my friends a lot about this, which is weird because it's like it got me here. Like I'm
Right.
actually doing pretty good. It's just this last, but it's a what got you here can't get you there. Like
Yeah,
I'm totally aware
exactly.
of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and if you want to skip ahead to module, I think it's 3. No, it's actually number 4. Then that would be where that's where we would pick up, I guess, on this thought. But the first thing is going to be that awareness. So go, if you want to start at module 4, 5, 6, and then you can obviously rinse and repeat the process after you work through this thought.
Got it. Yeah, is that for our next podcast?
You'll come back on next time and be like, I made $1 million. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
and it really is like, I always say, it's like, because the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And when you find these thoughts and then you learn the process of changing them, changes do happen really fast. Like it doesn't have to be. And that's where I'm saying, like, for you already have the platforms. It's like monetizing it is like probably going to take about 10% of work of what you're used to doing, and probably is easier than your day job, but you just haven't been able to see it because it's been hit. Like every single time, like you get a massive like stroke of genius, it's always something that was like right there all along, but your brain isn't ready to see it because it's like trying to keep you safe with these thoughts of like, I don't have anything valuable.
Yeah, I don't want to be safe anymore, bro.
Yeah, let's get rid of that. 2024.
Want to live dangerously and excitedly.
Exactly.
Put me on a motorcycle, take my helmet off.
That seems bad, but
that's
sure.
a bad idea. Yeah, let's not do that.
Let's go for emotional risk first, and then we can go for physical after that if you still feel that desire.
That's fine. I don't feel like doing that.
Amazing. Well, thank you for showing up here and for your vulnerability. I had so much fun. I'm sure my listeners are going to enjoy it, and hopefully you got something out of it as well.
Yeah, dude. And thank you. I appreciate you. I really, it's kind of amazing how this came together because I was connected with your material before, any of this happened. And this has been really helpful. Honest to goodness. It's like, it's strange. I'm just going to say again, like as a disclaimer, it seems like this, like we set this up or something, but I swear to God, like all this is, I'm like, what the fuck? How the fuck does Whitney say this shit? It's like landing so hard. Like it works, dude. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm going to save that soundbite, put it on my bio or something. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for coming on.
And that's a wrap on another episode of How to Be Famous. If you found today's episode to be helpful, then make sure to subscribe and leave me a review or tag me on Instagram at Whitney Uland. Your feedback helps me to continue making empowering content. And if you're ready to be the next big thing and you want to take this work even deeper and work with me directly to become a self-made celebrity, then head to the link in the show notes where you can learn how to coach with me directly. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or gossip, then feel free to slide into my DMs. They are always open. I'm at Whitney Uland on TikTok and Instagram. I always love hearing your stories, celebrations, and wins. And remember, this is not about fame for fame's sake. It's about making a positive impact, bringing your dreams to life, and inspiring people along the way. Stay inspired, stay ambitious, and most importantly, stay true to your authentic self. Until next time, I'm Whitney Uland, and this is How to Be Famous with Whitney Uland.